So once, and is sometimes the money the first thing?
The money is somewhere along the line. It's generally difficult to find the money without having the script, however. On the other hand, as I say, you can start with the concept. I very often, not so much anymore, but when I was starting, I would have an idea and I would know certain independent studios or independent production companies that I could just tell them the idea and I could get the money. But generally, you need a little bit more than that.
So, what makes a good script? What makes a sellable script?
What makes a saleable script is an almost impossible question to answer. William Goldman, a multi-Academy Award-winning screenwriter, wrote a book about Hollywood entitled Nobody Knows Anything. And he's almost right. What I would rewrite that title on, you always rewrite a writer's work, I would rewrite the title as Nobody Knows Anything for Sure. You have a general idea of what will work and what won't work based upon what has happened before, knowing that the situation can never be duplicated. To copy something exactly that has been successful before is probably going to be a disaster. To have something so far out that nobody understands it is a slightly better chance, but probably will not work well. What seems to work best is to understand what has been successful in the past and find something new, bring something new to it so that there is a sense of originality to the project.
Let me sidestep a little bit by asking you the following question. Recently you have been remaking films from your own previous productions like Piranha and Humanoids from the Deep. What new element was added to those remakes?
The new element was that Showtime, which is the #2 cable network in the United States, HBO is the #1, approached me and asked me to remake some of my old pictures, and I said I'm willing to do that for Showtime because they were paying me a certain amount of money. I said I'll remake some of the old pictures, but I don't want to just do that. I'll make primarily new pictures, maybe 60% new pictures and 40% old pictures. So the remakes really started with Showtime's idea, and I said I was willing to remake some of the films, but I really wanted to make new films. So the deal ran 3 years. I made 33 pictures for Showtime in that 3-year period, of which I would say probably 20 were new pictures and maybe 13 were remakes.
So once you've got a script that seems commercially viable, how do you start the financing process?
Well, every deal is different. For me, it's quite easy now. Over the period of time, my company has simply built up certain profits, and we just take out what's known in accounting as retained earnings. We simply take the money we made on previous films and just make a new film. So we just finance our own films, which is one of the reasons our films are generally medium budget and low budget, because we don't have that much money to make a big film. However, that's unusual. Most people do not finance their own pictures. As a matter of fact, there's something called OPM, other people's money. You're generally advised to use other people's money. The road to disaster is generally considered to be if you put your own money in a picture. Now, to get other people's money is a problem. There are certain places where you can go for financing. The best places are generally independent production or distribution companies who may put up a certain amount of money towards the distribution of a picture. You can get money from them. Sometimes if you have a very good script, you can go directly to a major studio who might be inclined to make a very big budget picture out of your script. It varies so many different ways. I financed my first picture because I started as a writer. I sold the script to a producer and went along I worked for nothing as associate producer so that I would learn, but also I got credit as associate producer and the writer. I then took the money from the sale of the script, and now I could set myself up as a producer writer, and I raised money from some old college friends, and we made the picture, but it was primarily financed from the money on the sale of my script. There are many, many places. One of the strongest is a television network or a cable television network, sometimes a home video company, very often a foreign distribution company, because if you're working in certain genres that have seemed to have worked in foreign is actually, for us, of course, it's anything outside of the United States. For you, it'll be anything outside of the Netherlands. Foreign is actually generally more reliable than domestic because you have the whole world to look to, and you can allocate, and a foreign distributor will say, well, I think I can get this much money out of Germany, or I can get this much money out of Japan. So it's possible to go to those sources.
And as you know, in the Netherlands we have an institution called the Dutch Film Fund, which basically, if you play it right, gives you free money. Is there such a thing in the United States?
No. This is both good and bad. It's bad to the fact that we don't have any free money. It's good to the fact that it's tougher for us, and therefore we are more specifically inclined in Hollywood, and to a lesser extent in New York, the major center, as you know, is Hollywood. We're more inclined to be very careful about making a film as to how we think it will do. Whereas if you have free money, sometimes you might be a little easier and not be quite as on the ball as you might be. However, there's been a lot of activity. In fact, I was asked, but I can't do it because I'm on the board of the American Film Market, to be one of 3 people to go to Washington to lobby Congress to get some sort of tax relief or tax shelter for American films, because the tax shelters and the subsidies and the film funds from countries around the world are drawing American production out of Hollywood, and Hollywood is very concerned about it. As a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point where states are drawing production out of California. It started, weirdly enough, with New Mexico. Nobody knows why or how, but the New Mexican, for those of you, I assume you all know, New Mexico is not Mexico. It's a state in the United States between Texas and Arizona. For some reason, the New Mexico legislature decided to give a tax credit it wasn't a big tax credit, it was something like 10 or 12% to any films shot in New Mexico, and almost nobody shoots any films in New Mexico. Their production jumped. Actually, it was easy to jump, say, from 1 picture a year to 2 pictures a year. You've got a 100% jump. But it was better than that. They went from something like 1 picture a year, say a Western shooting on location, because New Mexico is a very beautiful state, and particularly with the desert and the mountains there. They went from an average of something like 1 picture a year to 5 or 6 pictures in the very first year. Immediately, Louisiana offered such a subsidy. I think Georgia, now New York, trying to draw a picture from Hollywood to New York is offering such a subsidy. So we are not only faced with other countries that are taking films away from our country, we're faced with other states within our own country. However, I realize I'm off on a side issue here. That isn't going to affect anybody here. So, but the point is, these subsidies are a very valuable way to work.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, okay, just 1 second. Do you think that because usually in the States, or almost always in the United States, films are made by money that comes from investors or people who want to make their money back, as well as profit, that sometimes it influences the artistic value of films in a negative way?
It can influence the artistic value of films in a negative way, particularly the biggest budget films. If you're going to spend $100 million on a film, if you're a corporation which wants to spend that kind of money, you're going to be pretty cautious about your investment of $100 million. You're going to not want to offend anybody. You don't want to take chances. You want to make Spider-Man 14 or something like that where you feel you have a guaranteed audience. It's significant that at the Academy Awards this year, not one picture nominated for Best Picture was a blockbuster, was a giant budget film. Every one was a medium budget film in which people spending less money would take a little bit of a chance. There were more, every nomination was a controversial picture.